Today we're looking at Abraham Lincoln's New Salem. Hello, welcome to the Daily Bellringer. Please don't forget to subscribe and take a look at the questions down in the description. Also, don't forget to check out dailybellringer.com where you'll find more resources that go with many of the Bellringer videos. Today is a special episode of the Daily Bellringer as I'm filming this episode from the reconstruction of the New Salem village, which is located about 20 miles northwest of Springfield, Illinois. New Salem is significant because Abraham Lincoln, who would eventually become the 16th President of the United States and lead the country through the Civil War, lived and worked here between the years of 1831 to 1837. Lincoln was, of course, born in Kentucky in 1809, then moved to Indiana, then to Illinois with his father Thomas in 1830. The following year, in 1831, at the age of 22, Lincoln set out to make a life of his own and moved to the small village of New Salem. New Salem had been founded only 2 years earlier, and you have to remember, in the early 1800s, much of Illinois was still wild frontier wilderness, and the small village of New Salem, with only 25 families living here, was very remote. In fact, by 1840, a little over 2 years after Lincoln moved away, the town was basically abandoned, and then in the early 1920s began to be reconstructed as a state historic site that we see here today. As mentioned earlier, Abraham Lincoln was in his early 20s when he came here to New Salem. Lincoln was still somewhat uncertain about what he wanted to do, so he had a variety of jobs within the town. In 1831, he was hired by Denton Offutt to take a flatboat of goods down to New Orleans to sell at market. When he returned, he worked as a clerk in Offutt's store. While working here in March of 1832, Lincoln announced that he was going to run for election to the Illinois General Assembly. But in April of 1832, the Black Hawk War erupted when Chief Black Hawk led the Sauk and Fox tribes across the Mississippi River near present-day Rock Island, Illinois. The residents of Illinois saw this as a threat and began to organize a militia to fight back. Lincoln enlisted to fight, but the war was over before he saw any action. By the midsummer of 1832, he returned to New Salem and resumed his campaign to win a seat to the Illinois General Assembly. Lincoln would lose that election, coming in 8th out of 13 candidates running for the seat. In early 1833, Lincoln and his friend William Berry opened a store in New Salem. However, it quickly failed by the spring of 1833. But Lincoln was then offered the position of postmaster for New Salem and also took on the job of deputy county surveyor. One interesting thing to note was that during all of this time, Lincoln never owned a home in New Salem, which was not uncommon for unmarried men to do. Lincoln stayed in the New Salem Tavern or slept in the back of the general store. Despite the fact that he had a job as postmaster and deputy county surveyor, Lincoln had not lost ambitions to get elected to public office. In 1834, he again ran for a seat in the Illinois General Assembly, and this time he won. So he set out for Vandalia, Illinois, which was where the state capital was located at the time. At about this same time, he began to study law using books he borrowed from a friend in hopes of becoming a lawyer. As I mentioned before, Lincoln stayed in the tavern, which was owned by James Rutledge, who was one of the founders of the town. Lincoln was very interested romantically in one of Rutledge's daughters, Anne. Little is actually known about Abraham and Anne's relationship, but many historians consider Lincoln's first love to be Anne Rutledge. In 1835, typhoid fever struck New Salem and Anne died at the age of 22. It is said that Lincoln went into a severe depression because of her death. Nonetheless, Lincoln moved on, and in 1836 he was re-elected to the Illinois General Assembly and also received his license to practice law. As a member of the General Assembly, he began to argue that the state capital be moved further north from Vandalia to Springfield, which was more centrally located. In 1837, the General Assembly voted to move the capital to Springfield. Shortly thereafter, Lincoln decided his best move would be to move away from New Salem to Springfield and continue his political career and then open his own law office. So, on April 15, 1837, at the age of 28, after living and working in New Salem for 6 years, Lincoln left the small village. No one in the small village had any idea of the impact Lincoln would make on the country and his eventual rise to the presidency or the profound impact he would have on history. For them, Lincoln had been just another settler trying to make his way on the prairie frontier. So with that, hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching.